All right, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to our panel. This is Cosplay for Beginners. And we're basically going to take you through a little guide on how you can get started with cosplaying, joining the cosplay community, and we'll have Q&A at the end as well. All right, so we are about the Twins Cosplay. We've been cosplaying for over 10 years. We love to make our own cosplays and to enter competitions. We have experience with making our own cosplays as well as piecemeal, which we'll go into a little bit more later. And throughout our years of cosplaying, we've picked up a few tips and tricks on how to get started, and we'd like to share that with you today.
Okay, so first we'll just show some of our favorite cosplays. My favorite cosplay is my Dr. Eggman costume. It was quick and easy to make, and it's just fun to walk around in a bald cap and make friends at people who don't like Dr. Eggman. Another one of my favorites is my Strawberry Miku. It was a big project to take on, and I learned a lot about crafting through it, tried different techniques. And my last one is Ingo. That one's, I love the coat. It was fun to make that, and it was a cosplay I did with my sister. She did Emmett, so it's one of my favorites.
And before I continue, I should mention she's DB Nibbles and I'm Pearl. We have our own separate page, but together we form Back in Twins Cosplay. So some of my favorite cosplays is Maid Yotink, which I'm wearing today. This one's one of my favorites because it's my own original design. I had to work through how to create patterns for it, test it out, and I just love the way it came out. My second favorite is Guido Mista from JoJo's Bizarre. That cosplay is just overall a fun cosplay to wear. That one is both piecemeal, which is found clothing that you edit, and handmade. I made the shirt and the hat. And finally, my third favorite cosplay is going to be Emmett, which matches with her Ingo. That one was just a lightweight cosplay to put on, easy to wear, and overall just fun cosplay to wear. Alright, so topics we're going to cover in this panel. We're going to show you how to get started with cosplay if you're new to the world of cosplay, what to consider when selecting your character, and what type of cosplay you would like to create. For example, there's handmade, bought, and piecemeal. We're also going to briefly talk about wigs, where to get them, how to style them for beginners, and considering budgets when you're picking what cosplay to choose. We're also going to talk about how to show off your cosplay, whether that's just walking around the con, taking photos with your friends, hiring photographers, or entering cosplay contests. And at the end, we're going to have a Q&A.
So first we want to start on how to select your character. The way I like to select it is finding a character that is my favorite or a character I have a connection to or a strong feeling towards. I find that it motivates me a little more to make the costume and to be in character with the be in character when I'm in cosplay. Another way to choose is, do you think it looks cool? You don't have to know the source material. So I've made cosplays from animes and video games that I've never played before or seen, but I think the costume looked really cool and detailed, so I made the costume. And one thing to keep in mind is not to be too ambitious. So you need to consider your skill level. Are you beginner? Then you don't want to choose something with too many details. Are you intermediate? Then you want something that kind of challenges you, but is not too advanced. And you also want to consider your time. So how much time do you have to make this costume? For example, my Adam cosplay, I had less than 2 weeks. So I chose this one instead of doing a more detailed costume because I knew I didn't have time to make the pattern and make the whole costume. Another way to select your character is, once you think you found the character, draw out the details. It doesn't matter if you're artists or not. Just try to draw out the shapes that you're seeing, draw out each piece. You can get an understanding of what is required for that costume. It's a great way to determine if you can make this costume. You can also look for reference images like the Bayonetta one. A lot of the art books for Bayonetta has her costumes from the back and the front and shows all the details. So something like this is not achievable in 2 weeks.
All right, so what to consider when choosing your cosplay. So you want to think about the level of detail. So I have two examples here of characters. There's Yuji from Jujutsu Kaisen, and then we also have an illustration from Sakizo. So you want to look at how many details the character has. So Yuji has very few details, right? He has a button, different color sweatshirt, shoes, shirt, and hands, right? But with Sakizo, you have to understand the era that the design came from, how it's built, how many details you need to add to it, the ruffles, all the different materials and colors that it has as well. You also want to think about whether or not the design is common or unique. Like with Yuji, it's common because sweatshirts and hoodies are a common thing that you can find every day. But with Sakizo, it's not a common design, so you actually have to do your research, find the patterns for it, test it out, and it's going to take a little more work. Other common attires are school uniforms and just everyday clothing, so finding characters that are simpler to start with. Then there's also handmade versus bought and piecemeal, which I'm going to go more into details. So with handmade, it's making the costume from scratch. Cutting the fabric, doing your research, finding the fabrics that's going to work best for your project, using craft foam, constructing everything basically. Next we have piecemeal, which is using found pieces of clothing. Like you can look in your closet, you can go to Goodwill, just finding things that resemble the character that you want to cosplay, and you can also edit those pieces as well. Another name for it is closet cosplay, because it encourages you to look in your closet to see if you have any pieces that work for that cosplay. And finally is bought. That's just purchasing it online. You can commission someone else to make it for you. You can buy it off of Amazon. There's plenty of online cosplay websites that you can purchase your cosplay from. You can also combine these techniques. Like I showed with my Guido Mista, I did both handmade and piecemeal. Made the shirt and hat, but the pants I bought from a Goodwill and I painted to make it fit the character. Next, we're going to go into more details about handmade costumes, like making them from scratch. So for fabrics and supplies, you're going to want to know where to get them from. Before you go out and buy supplies or fabrics, I highly suggest you make a list of what supplies you need and how much you need of it. It's going to make your life easier instead of trying to figure this out while you're shopping. So a good place to go is Joann's. They have plenty of coupons. You can get coupons out of the app, you can get it from your email, you can get it from their website, and you can use multiple in a transaction. As long as the code on the coupon is different, you can use them in the same transaction. You also want to look through the remnant section. So if you have like a smaller detail like gloves or a detail on a shirt that you want to make, your remnant section will have fabrics that are usually a yard or less that are 50% off their current price. So if the fabric is normal price $10, and it's on sale 50% off, the remnant is then going to be an additional 50% off of that. And they often have sale days where the remnants are 70% off and more, so you can walk out of there with a bunch of remnants for very cheap. Also keep track of their sales, especially during holidays. They tend to mark down various supplies and fabrics. Another place to get fabric is the flea market. You can find fabric there very cheap, like $1 to $3 a yard. The only thing with that is you don't know if the seller is going to be there every week. You don't know what the selection is going to be. So it's a toss-up with it, but if you're just beginning or if you're on a tight budget, I highly recommend to go there to get fabric. You can also check on Etsy, especially if you need a specialty fabric. Like certain jewels or a certain holographic fabric, you have better odds of finding that on Etsy than going to Joann's or the flea market. One thing with that is you have to plan ahead when you buy from Etsy. Sometimes it takes a while for the fabric to be delivered, so make sure you're paying attention to the delivery date. An example of a place that I like to buy from on Etsy is Big Z Fabrics. They also now sell on Amazon, and you can go to their website. It's great, cheap fabric, great quality, and you can buy samples from them for like $1.50. So if you're not sure if a fabric's going to work for your project, I recommend buying the sample,
checking it, making sure it works, and then buying your fabric. Craigslist is also another great place to get fabric. I haven't bought fabric or got fabric from Craigslist in a while, but when I first started cosplaying, that was my go-to spot. There's a lot of free fabric on there. Like, families would be getting rid of their stash, and they're like, oh, just take this whole bag. You don't know what you're gonna get, you don't know the size of it. Sometimes it's old, but you can wash it, and it's great for practicing. You can also check eBay. Again, with like Etsy, it could take a while to get there. Some things could be pricey, some things are cheap, and you don't know the quality. So it's a great place to find things if you can't find it anywhere else, but still be cautious with that. And Amazon is my go-to for last minute supplies. If you have Prime, it's gonna get there super quick. It can be a little pricey, but you can often check the reviews to know if the quality is good and if it's gonna work for the project you have.
And to add on to that, you can also go to like Goodwill or Savers, and you can check the section that has sheets. Sheets are a great way for you to practice patterns, practice sewing without actually using the fabric that you intend to make your cosplay out of.
So here's an example of a handmade cosplay I made. I did clips from FNAF. I used cardboard as a base and used some Crayola air dry clay to sculpt it out. Then I had scraps of Warbler that I covered it with and painted it, and that's what it ended up looking like. An example of a shoe I made for the same costume. Instead of finding and buying a shoe that looked like his shoe, I started with a cheap flat that I got from like Dee's discount. And I got some cheap felt, made a pattern, tested it out, glued it to the shoe, and used airbrushing to get the details on it to make the shoe.
For my example, I'm going to be talking about made Mill Tank. So for this project, I wanted a special type of dye for my fabric. I saw online that there's fabrics that change color in the sun. So Mill Tank has a blue shiny version. So when I step into the sun, everything that's pink turns blue. So I had to find a fabric that can be easily dyed. I had to dye it myself. I put together a pattern that already existed and then made edits to it. Then finally cut it out of my own fabric. On top of that, I don't have the prop here today, but I made a little milk prop, which is just a jar with tacky glue and water to make it look like milk. All right, so tools. There's a bunch of tools that you can use to make your cosplay. The basics are scissors. When you're using scissors, there's one thing to keep in mind. You want a separate pair to cut fabric. You don't want to use the same pair that you're cutting craft foam with or cutting wigs with, because those can make the scissors dull, and when you go to cut your fabric, it can mess up your fabric. So keep a separate pair of scissors just for fabric. There's Dremels, which helps when you're making props out of like craft foam. It helps you sand the edge and make it smooth. Hot glue, always a lifesaver. When you don't finish something last minute in the hotel room, you just use the hot glue. Gorilla hot glue is the brand that I recommend because it's actually a really strong hot glue that rarely melts afterwards. Contact cement is what most cosplayers use to connect their different craft foam pieces together when making props. Sewing machine, there's different types of sewing machines. There's the more advanced ones that are computerized, but there also are start ones. Like Singer has a sewing machine that's for beginners. It just has the basic stitches on it. It's easy to use. So do your research into sewing machines if that's something you're interested in. You can also learn to hand sew as well. Iron. You always want to make sure that you have an iron as well, because a lot of fabrics, especially when you get it from the store, have folds in them. And before you cut your pattern out, you want to make sure that you iron it out, because if you don't do that, it can change the measurements of the piece that you cut out. X-Acto knife, heat gun, those are good for cutting craft foam or cutting vinyls if you're ironing on vinyls. Sewing pins and sewing clips are important when you're sewing pieces together. Sewing pins tend to leave holes in your fabric, so I highly recommend getting sewing clips instead because they don't damage your fabric as much as sewing pins. But for some situations, it's better to use sewing pins because they're not as bulky as the clips, especially when you're sewing through your machine. You need something out of the way, the pins are still a go-to. Safety pins. Safety pins are another one that's a lifesaver because safety pins can help you attach last minute details. If there's something that you need to flip inside out, attach a safety pin to it, pull the safety pin through, and it'll help you turn it inside out. Dress form. Not everyone uses dress forms, but I think they're pretty useful, especially if you get one that fits better to your size. You can even make your own. There's tutorials online on how to make your own dress form to fit exactly to your body. It helps you imagine how well your cosplay is going to fit, because it's easy to look at measurements and to just sew a cosplay, but it might not fit you exactly because you're not the same as the person that they modeled it on. So the measurements might be different for you. So using a dress form can help you make the adjustments that you need. There's fabric paint, spray paint. Those are just kind of basic things. If you're painting on fabric, use fabric paint. If you use just acrylic paint, it might chip, it might bleed through the fabric, so make sure you're using fabric paint. Spray paint, make sure you guys use outside, and use a mask to make sure you don't breathe any of that in. Same with contact cement. You want to make sure you use a mask with it as well. Other safety things you need are goggles, gloves, and aprons, just to make sure you don't get anything on the clothing that you're wearing and to keep your hands safe. Wig heads are good for if you're getting into styling wigs. If not, you don't necessarily need a wig head, but it's hard to cut a wig without having it on a head to imagine where the bangs should be or what length you need it to be. Masking tape and duct tape are good for when, and painter's tape are good for when you're trying to paint something to keep within the edge. Duct tape is used for patterning as well. So you can wrap yourself in saran wrap and then loosely put duct tape over the top of you, draw out the pattern that you need, cut it apart, and use that to make your cosplay. Let's see, other than that, permanent markers you can use to mark up on pretty much anything, and thermoplastics are good for if you're trying to make props. So where to get supplies on a budget? Especially when you're getting started, you might not have a big budget to make a cosplay, or it could be a last minute thing. You can check the dollar stores. Most things are $1 to $2, and they have a wide variety of things as well. You can get sewing supplies, lights if you want your cosplay to light up. Sometimes they have small pieces of fabric there that you can use for smaller details on your cosplay. You can get supplies to make patterns. Sometimes they have rolls of paper that you can practice drawing your patterns on. You can cut it out and practice with that. Glues and yarns can be found there as well. Walmart and Daiso have affordable supplies. And I'll go a little bit more into Daiso in a little bit, but it has a wide variety of things and they're constantly changing what they have. So checking there just to see what you might need in the future. And you want to think outside the box. See if there's an item that you can use in a way that it's not intended.
And if I add on to the Walmart thing, Walmart does sell fabric and it's pretty cheap, but the quality is also cheap, so just be mindful of that. It's great for mock-ups, but probably not the real thing. I tried making a corset out of their satin and it fell apart, so please be cautious of the quality of the fabric.
All right, so more about Daiso. So Daiso actually has their own like aisle full of like sewing stuff, and I use quite a bit of it for the milk tank cosplay that I'm wearing. I got bobbins that already had thread on them. Elastic is used in my cosplay as well. The buttons that are on my apron, I covered in the fabric that I dyed. The stuffing, I have a tail that's filled with stuffing. Stuffing came from Daiso, as well as the jar for my milk and the bandana that I cut for the top of it. So there's quite a few things that you can find when you go to Daiso. Just make sure you have a list of things that you need, and like my sister had said earlier, sketch out the different shapes that you might need, because there might be something there that you didn't imagine would work for your cosplay.
Next, we're going to talk about mock-ups. We've mentioned it a few times, but this is a great way to make sure your pattern and your cosplay is going to fit right and to save you time and money. So basically, you want to start out with a pattern. You can buy it from the store, you can trace it from another piece of clothing, or like for my Strawberry Miku, I drafted the pattern from scratch. So I started with my paper pattern. I made it out of a cheap fabric to see how it fit. I didn't like the collar, it wasn't long enough. I made adjustments to it until I liked the final fit, and then I used that mock-up as the pattern for my final shirt. But when you're doing mock-ups, make sure you're using a similar fabric. So you don't want to have your final costume be made out of stretch, but you use a cotton, a non-stretch fabric for your mock-up. It's not going to fit the same. So if you're making something out of stretch, make sure your mock-up fabric is stretch. If you're doing a cotton for your final, make sure your mock-up is a non-stretch. Here's another example of a mock-up I did for my Adam cosplay. I saw a dress in the Goodwill that had a similar shape to his tunic, so I got that, I cut it apart, copied the pattern, and used that as my base. And then I went from there, made adjustments for my mock-ups, went through 3 different mock-ups until I got the fit that I was happy with.
All right, now we're going to talk about piecemeal, using found items and clothing to make your cosplay. All right, I'm going to use UG as an example again. So where to buy? You can buy from Goodwill. Flea market is a great place because there's often people there selling their clothing for like $1 for each piece of clothing. You can go to Savers. Always check your closet to see what you have. There might be something in there that you don't wear anymore that you can cut up or edit for your cosplay. There's also DD's Discount and Ross. DD's Discount tends to have the cheaper clothing, so that's what I actually recommend going. Ross can sometimes be a little more on the expensive side. So what to look for? So if we're trying to cosplay UG, we know he has a red hoodie, he has a blue sweatshirt, blue pants, and red shoes. So you can just look for basics. It doesn't have to match identical. It doesn't have to resemble it if you don't want it to. You can put your own twist to it. If you want to wear some platform red shoes, you can do that. So you want to think outside the box. You can combine different pieces to make it fit what you're looking for. So if you were to put everything together, you can layer the different pieces together. You can put the hoodie on first, sweatshirt on top, or you can edit the pieces. You can cut the hood off of the red one and sew it to the blue sweatshirt to make things a little easier. You can also paint and dye your fabric if you want to slightly change the color. You do have to do a little research into the type of fabric that the clothing is made out of and which dye to use with it. You can, yeah, that's basically it. Layer it and cut and combine.
Next, we're going to talk about wigs. Wigs are very important to cosplay. Most cosplays have wigs. Unless you have the hairstyle already, then I recommend going with your regular hair. But I'm going to go over where you can buy wigs in if you want to style them. So where to buy wigs? Arter Wig has amazing wigs, but they can be a little pricey, but I highly recommend their wigs. Epic Wigs is another great place, but again, it's a little high price, and especially for beginners, I don't recommend starting with those wigs. A great place to start is on Amazon. There is a brand called Map of Beauty Wigs. I've been using them since the start of our cosplay journey. They're like $9 to $13. You can get short wigs, you can get Miku wigs with ponytails. They're great quality for the price, and if you mess it up while you're styling it, what did it cost you? Like 10 bucks. So I highly recommend starting with lower priced wigs. You can also get good wigs pre-owned. So I go to Mercari, you can bundle things up on there. So I've gotten bundles of Arta wigs for super cheap, like cheaper than the price of one full price Arta wig from there, because there's cosplayers who are either done with the wigs, didn't use it for a cosplay they had planned, or they're just done cosplaying and they rather see it go to someone who's going to use it. One thing with that, when you're buying it pre-owned, is you can't really control what's in stock. It's determined on who's getting rid of stuff and what colors and what style they're getting rid of. So it's a little toss-up with that, but if you're patient enough and you're planning ahead of time, you might be able to find the wig you really want pre-owned. So styling. Styling is a lot of fun to me. I like styling wigs, especially making them fluffy. As you can see in my Junko wig, one side is it without using the crimping iron, the other side I use the crimping iron. It's a great way to puff out your wigs and add volume without adding weight to it. It does take a long time. I did the same method with my Sharpie Miku wig and it took over 12 hours. So you have to be patient with it, but it's a great way to puff out your wig before you style it. Another tool you can use is a blow dryer, combs, and make sure you have a sharp scissor if you're cutting it. For styling products, Got to Be Glue freeze spray is my go-to. I always use it. I never go to a con without it. It's amazing. And you'll use it with the blow dryer. So if you want spikes, if you want your hair to stand up, if you want certain shapes in your hair, you use this glue. I like to spray it, comb it into the hair strands, spray it again, and then use the blow dryer, and it will hold it into place. It is an amazing glue. It takes a little patience to learn how to use it. It's very easy to make a mess with it if you don't quite know what you're doing, but if you want to get into styling wigs, I highly recommend it.
And if you're not interested in styling wigs, Amazon has a bunch of pre-styled wigs for just about any character that you can think of.
Okay, here's an example of a wig I styled. So when you're styling your wigs, you want to think about what parts aren't being seen, how can you hide parts that aren't wig, how can you cut corners to make it cheap and way less. So for my nifty wig, I got a wig from MAGWest. It was like $9. I used the crimping iron to give it value, and then I wanted to mimic the shape she has on the end, so I added wires into it, covered it with batting, and covered that with MAGWest. I used 3 different wigs combined to make this. So the short red wig, the longer strands you see was from another wig, and then the yellow is from a separate wig that I glued together. I then took the longer hair wefts and wrapped it around the wire using the Got to Be glue spray, and you can see the finished product. It's pretty light, it stays in the shape that I want it to stay, and yeah, that's just an example of a wig. Okay, so our last section will be showing off your cosplay. You learned how to choose your costume, you learned how to buy it, how to make it yourself, how to get your wig. So now what? What do you want to do with it? Do you want to enter a contest? Do you want to take photos with it and post it online? Do you want to interact with the community? We'll go over that.
All right. So in-person craftsmanship. So if you make your costume and you would like it to be judged to see if you can win anything for it, or even just to show it off or get critique from the judges, we highly recommend bringing a build book, which is just a book that shows progress pictures of how you made it, maybe what your favorite part of it is, anything that challenged you. The judges like to see your process of making your cosplay. The judges will also ask you questions usually, and the most common questions are, what was your most challenging aspect? Favorite part of your cosplay? How long did it take for you to complete your cosplay? And what inspired you? So you want to think of these before you go in to get judged, so that you're able to show to judges why you picked this cosplay and what you're enthused about. in-person performance. So some cons let you do a performance. You don't always have to do craftsmanship when you do performance. Some cosplayers just like to perform on stage with their store-bought costumes, and that's fine too. You want to make sure that you understand the rules of the stage. Usually before you go on stage, there's someone there that explains to you what the rules are. Like, you enter on this side, exit on the other side, no jumping, no doing flips off the stage, things like that. So before you do your performance, you want to make sure that it aligns with the rules of the stage. You also want to consider the crowd. So if you're doing a comedy skit, for example, and you put a joke in your skit, you want to leave a moment of silence in your skit so that the audience has a chance to laugh, so that they don't miss any of your dialogue. Or if you do something cute, you want to give them a pause as well so that the audience may say, "Aww," and then resume your audio. You will also want to think about whether or not they're going to understand your skit. So it doesn't matter what fandom you're cosplaying from. You want to make sure that you include things in your skit that someone that's not a part of that fandom will understand. It's okay to add things in there that's just for the fandom that fans of the show might understand, but you want to make sure overall that it's something that someone who has no idea what cosplay is, no idea what that show is, will be able to understand. And then in terms of audio, you usually get about 2 minutes to do your performance. So you want to make sure your audio is clear so that the audience can understand what you're saying in your audio. When it comes to performing, you usually can do it as a solo or you can do it as a group. Group performances are a ton of fun. It lets you connect with other cosplayers that you may or may not know. And it's just overall a fun time being on stage with someone else. Performing solo is also great. It lets you really focus on your cosplay and the best way to show off your cosplay to the audience. There's also walk-ons, which is different than a performance. So a performance, you go up there, you get your 2 minutes to do your little skits, but walk-ons are, you just walk on, you do a pose, you hold it for a couple of seconds, you walk across the stage and you do another pose. And depending on how wide the stage is, you might do 2 to 3 different poses, just so the audience can take a picture. You want to do maybe a twirl or do a pose, whatever is relevant to your character and will show off your cosplay.
And if I can add on to the in-person performance, some conventions have big theaters and they have screens where you can put things on the screen. So make sure you read the rules and see if they have that and use that to your advantage. Some cosplayers will have like a backdrop, or sometimes they'll put subtitles of what they're saying on that screen. You can utilize it to make sure you're making the best performance you can.
Okay, so we're going to show an example of, it's one of my favorite skits that we've done together. It's from SAC Anime Winter 2016. So footage is a little old, so it's a little blurry, but bear with this. get back to our presentation. So for this skit, we just had a ton of fun with it. At the time, Pokemon was very popular. So was the song. So we tried to incorporate things that was well known to the public. And yeah, we just kind of went with it. Our cosplays we got from the Goodwill, and we decided that instead of doing craftsmanship, we were just going to go on stage and have fun and do a performance. You do that?
All right, next we're talking about online craftsmanship. So there's online contests you can enter, and there's been a big increase on them since COVID started. So an example is like Crunchyroll Expo. They had the Cosplay Hime Cup that was online. With online, a lot of the same rules apply as with in person, but you're not going to be in front of the judges when you submit your costume online. You're submitting a build book, and we'll show an example of a build book after this, but you want to show, don't tell. So as you're showing the progress in your build book, use pictures to describe everything, and maybe have a little note. You don't want to write a whole book on how you craft the costume. The judges are looking through a lot of these, and you want to make sure yours is memorable and they can get through it easily.
All right, so here's an example of a build book. Both my sister and I were finalists in the Crunchyroll Hime Cosplay Contest in 2021. And we decided to do the 2019 popularity poll versions of Bakugo and Deku. So this is my portion of the build book. I did a little introduction, showed a picture of the character, told them who I was. I listed out the materials, and this is just so the judges know what you used for your cosplay. In case there might be something unique in there, they can make note of it. I also walked them through the process of how I made my gun gauntlet. So I just showed step-by-step pictures of kind of the different phases that the gauntlet went through. I also made little notes in there so that they knew what exactly I did to create the gauntlet. Then I posted the final pictures. I did different angles so that the judges can see it. Next, I talked about my boots. The boots were something I was really proud of because the boots that Bakugo had were pretty long boots, but I didn't have long boots at home. So I made, in addition to that Velcro to the top of the boot, and the boot had these little buttons on it, and I used googly eyes for those buttons and painted them. So I wanted to make sure the judges knew that I was being resourceful and finding cheap alternatives to making the buttons on the boots. And then I also just showed more details of other accessories that I made. I didn't go into too much details on how I made those because they weren't as important as the other pieces that I constructed. I also had a page on sewing, showing them my sewing skills and what I did to make the vest. I also talked a little bit about the wig and how I tried things for the first time. So for example, I said I used grommets for the first time. So I wanted to make sure the judges knew that this was my first time using the grommets and this is how it turned out, and that I'm challenging myself by trying new things.
Okay, next we're going to talk about online performances. Again, it's very similar to in-person performances, but with this, you want to show off your costume. So in person, you're going to be on stage, you can see it right then and there while you're telling the story. On here, this is also for the judges when you do online. So you want to tell the story within a time limit. You also want to show off all the details of your costume within that time limit as well. You also want to pay attention to video editing rules. For Crunchyroll, we weren't allowed to do like VFX on it. We had to use practical effects. So everything has been made by us or something we did in person for the video. So just make sure you're reading the rules when you're entering online for that and see what's allowed, what's the time limit, make sure you understand all of that. Another important aspect to online performances is the shooting location. So if you're in a gown, like a beautiful ball gown, you probably don't want to shoot your video in your kitchen or out in the backyard or in a forest, unless it matches the ball gown. You want to find a location that will enhance your cosplay and enhance the story you're trying to tell. We will show an example of our entry from Crunchyroll Expo. We did shoot it in our kitchen, but we didn't have another space. So, I mean, if that's what's available to you, that's what's available to you. But we wanted to show off our costumes, make it funny. We love doing comedy skits, and yeah, we'll show the video now.
Do your action figures always fall apart on you? Well, do we have the product for you? Introducing, almost like the real thing, but not, Heroes Edition. Comes in 2 different models. The green All Might Small Boy Deku, with the pre-recorded voice lines,
All Might!
and
Kachan! Kachan! Kachan!
Shut up, Deku.
look at all those details. And the hot-headed, spiky-haired, angry son, Bakugo.
Kachan!
His voice lines are,
Out of the way, nerd.
and wow. Neato. These can be yours with 14 easy payments of everything you own, plus Ultra.
I love them.
But wait, there's more. If you call now, you can get Hooded Deku as a bonus.
No thanks.
Call 1-800, not a real number, to place your order today.
So in this example, you can see we put subtitles up. It made it easier for you to understand what's going on in the video. We did put jokes in here that maybe only Hero Academia fans could understand, but certain things like that, like we mentioned earlier, is okay to throw things in there. But for the most part, if you're not familiar with the show, you understood the concept that we're pretending to be action figures and we're showing off our costumes.
Yeah, we actually ended up getting Best Presentation in the intermediate category for this one. So we were actually pretty excited. For those of you who don't know about My Hero Academia, there's a character in there that you can't see, but she wears these gloves so you can see her gloves. So that's what the glove on the stick was. We tried to play on the fact that you couldn't see the rest of her. And we used it in a playful way to show off the different details of our cosplay. All right, so photographs. Photographs are a great way to capture your cosplay and to show it to the world. So before getting photographs, you want to think about how your character will pose. Do they have a signature pose? Is there a pose that you think will be funny for the character? You can really do any pose that you think will match the character. But you also want to know your comfort zone. So like everyone knows what the JoJo pose is and how difficult that can be. If you're not comfortable with that, if you can't bend back like that, that is fine. You can find another pose that your character might do, or you can do a simplified version of that where you don't lean back as much as the actual characters do. For editing, you can use Photoshop, which is probably the most common way to edit photos, or you can use mobile apps. For example, there's PixArt. It lets you crop your photos, add filters to your photos, and just overall clean up your photo so that it's presentable if you want to post it on social media. Photographers are also another great way to get photos. Sometimes you'll see photographers roaming the halls at conventions and they might ask for your photo. Or you can also book a session with a photographer. And in a way that you can find out which photographers to book with is if the con you're going to has a page where others can post on. They usually post their rates and how you can book with them on there. You can also network with other cosplayers to see who they like to shoot with and how much it costs as well. There's also free photo shoots. Some photographers just want examples to put in their portfolio, so sometimes they will ask if they can take your photo for free. And then they often give you like a business card or whatever so you can find the photo on their social media. For photo shoots that cost, it usually costs either for a time limit, so like a certain amount of money for 30 minutes, or to be per photo. Like you might get 4 photos for this price. So just make sure you understand what you're getting out of the photo shoot before you book the photo shoot. There's also, for posting and sharing, you can post on like Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. Those are the most common ones. But just remember, if you do post on social media, that you give the photographer credit. So if you're posting on a social media platform that the photographer is not on, make sure you say, oh, you can find this photographer at this handle on Facebook or this handle on Instagram, but always credit the photographer so that if someone likes the photo, they can go and find the photographer and book with them as well.
And the photographer will do the same. If they're posting your photos on their page, they will often tag you in it so that people can find you if they like your costume.
Getting photos and posting it on social media is a great way to network with the community.
Lastly is the community. So cosplay is everywhere. There's conventions, there's events in Japantown, there's events online, like you can do the contests we talked about. There's people on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and there's been an increase on cosplayers on TikTok as well. They'll post videos of how they do their makeup, how they make their costumes. You can go there for resources, figure out how to make your own costume, or just to interact with them, because you can stitch videos with them and make connections and make friends on things that you guys have in common. And lastly, I want to say that cosplay is for everyone. It does not matter your body type, your size, your race, your height, your gender, if you're disabled, your sexual orientation, none of that matters. You can cosplay whoever you want to cosplay. You can gender bend a character if you're not comfortable being a different gender. You can do whatever you want. You can do your own version. Like some people do steampunk versions of characters, some people do simple versions, casual versions. There's a wide variety of things you can do with cosplay. It does not have to match the character exactly. Just remember to have fun with it and be kind to each other. And yeah, that brings us to the end of our presentation.
Before we move on, I'd like to add to that. So if you haven't gotten started with cosplay yet, in your first cosplay, even if it's just a wig that you put on with something that you have in your closet, that's fine too. Any level that you're comfortable with is a great way to just connect with other cosplayers at conventions. Don't be afraid to get started. I know the first cosplay can be nerve-wracking because you're worried about, is it good enough? What will other people think? But don't worry about that. I promise you there's plenty of people in the community that will support you no matter what your level or experience is with cosplay.
My first cosplay was Ash Ketchum, and I made his hat out of duct tape. And then I took a t-shirt that was blue, turned it inside out, and cut it open for the vest. That was my very first costume. It was a blast. It didn't look great, but you know what? It got me into cosplay, and it got me into the community. So if you've never cosplayed before, give it a try. Go have fun.
My first cosplay was also from Pokemon. I was gym leader Silent. If you don't know him, he has green hair. I found a cheap wig at Target. It was this bright neon green wig that wasn't the right length, it wasn't the right color, but I wore it anyway. I had a shirt that I cut the sleeves off of to make a vest, and he has a little green bow tie, and I had a headband that was green, and I kind of just folded it in half and tied a string around it to make the bow. It was just my first experience, and I went for it, and I've been in the cosplay community ever since then. So I promise you it's worth it. If you're interested in cosplay, just go for it.
So now we're gonna have a Q&A time. So if you have any questions on anything we presented, I know we covered a wide range of topics. If you have any questions about cosplay in general, about our experience, our journey in cosplay, any questions, please feel free to come up and ask them. And if you don't feel comfortable asking them now, you can find us on social media, send us a message on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter, or send us an email. We're always available to answer any questions, help you in any way that we can.
Yes. And to add to that, we will be judging for the cosplay contest tomorrow. So if you have a cosplay, no matter your level of experience, go ahead, enter, sign up. We'd love to see your cosplays. And after the cosplay contest, we will be having a meet and greet at 3 p.m. tomorrow. Feel free to come by our table. We have 3 different build books. So if you want to look at how to construct a build book, different examples of build books, come on by. We have props, things for you to check out, and we have candy. So we hope to see you guys there if you don't have any questions.
Yeah, thank you so much for listening to us. So if you have questions, please come up to the mic. Yeah.
First, sorry, I have like multiple questions. So first of all, when you mentioned Etsy fabric stores, are there any particular sellers that you like to buy fabrics from?
Not in particular besides Big Z, but with Big Z Fabrics, I recommend going to their website instead. The shipping is cheaper and you can get samples from there. But no, I don't have one seller that I recommend. It differs from project. Like, I was gonna make Evelyn KDA version, and I looked for fabrics on Etsy for like 3 months and looked through all these different sellers, and it was sellers I've never bought from, but they were the only ones that carried a fabric that looked as close to the example that I had that I really wanted. So I would say experiment, but definitely look at reviews. So people will let you know, hey, this fabric doesn't look the same, or this fabric is cheap quality, or this fabric is amazing. So just make sure reviews are gonna be your best friend if you're buying from Etsy.
I still have more questions.
Go for it.
Go for it.
Another thing, you mentioned buying used wigs. Is there anything in particular that you do to make sure that they're like clean before you like put them on?
You can wash them. Yeah, I just,
The dryer or the washer?
no, I just go to like a sink and like get a bowl and I wash it. You can use laundry detergent or just dish soap. Just wash them through thoroughly and you'll be fine.
Okay. And since I got here a little bit late, is there like a QR code or something so that we can look at the presentation? Like later on if you want to look at the resources, or is it?
We can post a QR code for it on our Instagram later, so if you take a picture of our socials, we can post it up.
Okay. I think, I do have one more question. When it comes to actually wearing like all these, these costumes, I assume sometimes it gets like just sweaty or uncomfortable. Is there anything that you do or you think about in the actual construction of these garments to like make sure that it's like as comfortable as you can possibly make it?
Yes. Before we pick a cosplay, we think about what con we want to wear it to and what the season is going to be. So we try to pick cosplays that aren't going to be too hot. Like this one here is just made out of cotton. This one's a great one to wear during the summertime because it won't get too hot. There's also, you can look up different types of fabrics and you want to like make sure you feel the fabric to know how thick it's going to be. So like winter ones are great ones where you have a jacket maybe or a sweater. Just considering the different seasons is what we usually do. I don't do that all the time. I was like one time, like, I'm gonna be Bayonetta in the summertime. Let's go full pleather suit. It was awful. Just learn from those experiences. Sometimes you just really want to make a costume, and sometimes if that's where your mindset is, you gotta make it then, or it's not gonna get made. But I would highly recommend thinking about that. Like for this costume, I was like, oh, it's cotton. I wore it to Sac Summer. It's gonna be fine. It's hot. But I also fully lined it, so it's multiple layers, and I'm like, that was not a good idea. But yeah, you'll figure it out as you go, or again, like I do, you'll stop caring just because you have a passion for a character you're cosplaying. That's true. The cosplay we're going to be wearing tomorrow is Gumi and Miku. And Gumi has this puff jacket. And I could have used a different lining, but I like to pick fabrics that resemble what it looks like in the picture. So I chose this puff lining that has batting in it. It's hot, and I'm going to be suffering through it. But it was a cosplay that I was passionate about, so I just went for it. So like she was saying, sometimes you just go for the cosplay, but if you're really concerned about sweating and everything, just plan accordingly based on the weather.
Cosplay is suffering. That's what I like to tell people. There's some people walk around in stilettos. I can't walk in heels. I don't know how they do it, but they're like, because it looks good and it goes with the cosplay. I'm like, okay, you do you. Go for it. I like to wear Crocs. I'm wearing Crocs right now. I will pop on Crocs at any instance I can. forget the heels.
You can see in our photo here, we were like, no dress shoes, Crocs. And Crocs come in so many different colors, why not?
Any other questions? Yeah.
In the case of making like metal props or like metal armor or helmets, what process do you think would work best in regards to like cardboard or paper mache, duct tape? What do you think would be best?
A lot of people use EVA foam. So there's a lot of tutorials online. You can find patterns for making armor online as well. It's easy to cut through, easy to sand. There's tutorials on how to seal it, how to glue it together. That we mentioned contact cement, that's gonna be your friend when gluing foam together. So I highly recommend EVA foam. It's light and it won't be too hot, but you'll have to add things to your costume if you want to make it breathable.
Yeah, and clay foam as well. So like if you glue different pieces of EVA foam together, you might still have a seal or a crack that's open. You can take the foam clay and just run along the edge to get a smooth edge as well. And it really depends on just how you finish it, right? So if you get like a shiny spray paint, then it's gonna look similar to metal. Any other questions?
Okay, thank you so much for listening to us today. And again, if you have questions that you think about later or you want to contact us in any way, here's our socials. Thank you so much.
Thank you.